Hello, leader. Welcome back to the Fierce Factor podcast. It's Kaylee here, and you are tuning in to episode number 217. And I wanted to have a conversation today about the little rumblings I'm hearing in our industry about concerns about an economic downturn. I will say I brought this topic up to my team, and the first question one of my coaches asked was, are we starting to do this fear-mongering thing, or is there a real recession happening? And I said, we're absolutely not fear-mongering. We are going to give straightforward advice about what's going on, why a potential recession would be imminent, and why that happens, and some strategies for thriving. And I thought it would be appropriate, as I was kind of scrolling back through some of the old Fierce Factor podcast episodes for inspiration. I realized I had recorded back in 2022 an episode number 135 that talked really about how to cultivate abundance during a recession. And I thought that was so timely. I also had another episode about how to price your services during an economic recession as well back in 2020. So there were a couple, and, obviously just conversations happen, right? Like, hey, there's something going on here politically. There's some sort of upheaval happening and people are nervous. And I see this, even seasons, right? Like summer's coming and got to brace ourselves. But the truth is we really believe and teach the concept of building a seasonally, I think, thriving kind of business that can withstand ups and downs and any kind of turbulence because it's built on the right foundation and it's built on the principle of being intimately connected to understanding what your top customers need and creating an experience where they are confident to continue to spend money with you. And I'm going to replay this episode for you, number 135, because I think it's just really timely. I sort of did a little Instagram poll. I was just wondering how you all felt. And I think most business owners right now, certainly in our industry and my ecosystem, are saying, hey, I feel I'm not stashing cash under the mattress, but I'm not going to go out and buy my next Birkin bag either. Kind of somewhere in between. And I think part of that is just teetering the line of, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I personally have been seeing some trends just in confidence in sort of making bigger decisions, right? And not that they're not happening, but taking a little bit longer. And the reality is we are in a constricting economy. And it's not like it was in 2021 when the floodgates opened and everybody was like, all right, now where do I spend all my money and how do I take care of myself? I think that there's still elements of that. And certainly at one point in time over the course of the past 3 years, maybe you as a business owner felt like, wow, business is just rolling in, right? A lot of new business that sort of comes organically. And I think that the freeness of that and the way that leads are being generated needs to be a little bit more strategic now. Number one, so that we don't end up creating a model in our business where we start listening to fears of our patients and then adapting, discounting, and creating an environment where we are putting ourselves in a tough spot, or we are cheapening the integrity of our brand for when things are good again. And so the biggest challenge I see are people making reactive decisions, like not investing in the things they should be investing in, i.e. strategic advisory around how to set their business up properly, but also cutting back on better employees. And I'm not going to really spend. And the idea is that be conscientious of cash flow and certainly cut back on the frivolous things, but double down on the things that are going to ultimately produce a greater impact for you and your business, both immediately and closing that short-term gap, but also setting yourself up for epic growth and abundance down the road. So in this podcast, I'm going to talk about 5 different strategies to cultivate abundance during a recession. And there's just a few key points I want to emphasize with you. One is that some of the best businesses were flat out started during an economic downturn. So we can look at models, and I'm going to share some of those examples with you in this podcast, but some of these examples of where there is so much opportunity Number two is that when we are in a constricting economy, there is also much opportunity to capitalize on gaps. So we start to see other competitor businesses become reactive and crumble and start to kind of go down that path of, now I see there's opportunity for me to take advantage of some of these strategies or certain type of clientele or certain type of service, et cetera. And then finally, number three is that please remember that economic uncertainty is a big part of what stimulates a slower economy, meaning fear is what makes people spend less. So we want to help them spend confidently. And that absolutely goes back to the value of developing a strong trust and relationship with your existing customer and giving them a reason to feel really good about where they are investing and will continue to invest by doing business with you. Okay, final announcement before we kick off this podcast is a reminder that we're going to be talking about setting these strategies into place, actually getting pen to paper on June 14th at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern for our strategic planning of the second half masterclass. So I'll link in the show notes the registration link for you. It's klcconsultants.com/masterclass. Or if you DM me masterclass on Instagram. And yes, I do read all of those. So send me a note and I will get you registered or get you the link to register. This is a free class and we have put together a 24-page strategic planner that when you show up live, you get access to. So make sure you clear your schedule and get registered for that before it sells out. It's free, but you know what I'm saying, before we run out of room in our Zoom account. Okay, goddess, enjoy this episode. I hope this inspires you and empowers you and encourages you to focus on the right things to really double down on what's happening right now in our political landscape and with this economic fluctuations. Without further ado, enjoy these 5 strategies to cultivate abundance during a recession. Hi there. Welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaylee Lindholm. And I think it's time for us women to shift the conversation in business and step into our feminine leadership to do the most iconic work the aesthetic industry has ever seen. Each week, I'll be bringing a powerful dose of strategy, sarcasm, solutions, and sass that will rev up your creativity and ignite your brilliance as you link arms with me along our shared path of personal and professional growth in 20 minutes or less. Let's go. Hello, leader. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Fierce Factor podcast. It's your host, Kaylee Lindholm here. I am the founder and CEO of KLC Consulting, where we are on a mission to help 100 inspiring and intentional women cross the next $1 million milestone in their business this year. And that mission is something we think, eat, sleep, breathe, and invest deeply in to accomplish every single day over here at KLC. And that's why I am committed to helping you start every single Monday morning with a concentrated 20-minute dose of inspiration that will empower you and uplift you to face the nuances of business leadership with clarity and confidence. And that's, of course, my hope for us today. I found that there's a lot of education, support, and resources for practice owners who are starting out. You know, pick a weekend and there's an aesthetic conference to attend, pick an Instagram profile and there's an injector who has a pop-up academy, Google a consultant and there's a YouTube video, mine included. There are a ton of tactics aimed toward giving insights and information about what to do next. And we as humans love the tactics. We love the idea that we are just one software program or device away from success. And let's be honest with ourselves, as a society, we're addicted to instant gratification. See any headline that claims the quickest path to time and money freedom, and we're hooked, right? And I'm recording this episode here in Punta Mita, Mexico, at the tail end of our incredible leadership retreat, where 10 entrepreneurial-minded women collectively recharged, refocused, renewed, and really re-energized together. The level of conversation from building team to scaling to selling businesses in the tens of millions of dollars was both inspiring and rare. And I'm fired up. Because if you're just starting your business, like I said, there's 100 places to go for guidance. But if you've already grown beyond the $1 million milestone, your questions are going to be less about marketing or sales tactics and much more about the pathway to architect your thought leadership in the aesthetic industry and how to become a woman who's capable of achieving success that makes other people uncomfortable. And that's why in our academy, we aim to stand shoulder to shoulder with women of this caliber of mindset, women who are breaking molds and disrupting the status quo. One of the insightful discussions that came up this week was, how is everyone bracing for an economic recession? Is this actually going to happen? Is this something we should be concerned about? How can we set our business up to thrive in any economic downturn? And it happens to be midterm election day today as I record this podcast. Interest rates are on the rise. The housing market, it's correcting itself. And what this generally means is that the good old post-pandemic aesthetic boom is stabilizing. A 2022 article published in The Economist titled, "What America's Next Recession Will Look Like, A Mild Downturn May Be Followed by a Painfully Prolonged Recovery." This article quotes, "These days it's hard to turn a corner without bumping into predictions of an American recession. Big banks, prominent economists, and former officials are all saying that a downturn is a near certainty as the Federal Reserve wrestles inflation under control. 3/4 of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are braced for growth to go negative before the end of 2023. Bond yields and consumer surveys are flashing red. Google searches for recession are soaring. The track record is certainly ominous. As Larry Summers, a former Treasury Secretary, has observed, whenever inflation has risen above 4% and unemployment has dipped below 4%, two thresholds that, when breached, indicate economic overheating, well, America has suffered a recession within 2 years, and it's well across both thresholds now. But it's not all doom and gloom, because what I want to share with you today is a blueprint for leaning into the recession, the quickest path to time and money freedom. And there are stories upon stories of fairy tale recession triumphs. In early 2000, a 5-year-old online bookseller called Amazon.com, heard of them, sold $672 million in convertible bonds to shore up its financial position. 1 month later, the dot-com bubble burst. More than half of all digital startups went out of business over the next few years, including lots of Amazon's then rivals in e-commerce. Had the bubble burst just a few weeks earlier, one of the most successful companies ever might have fallen victim to that recession. Another example, Warby Parker. Warby Parker is an example of a brand that was founded during a Great Recession. The reason they were able to succeed during this time, they filled an enormous gap in the marketplace. While you might think that you shouldn't start a business during an economic crisis, it's actually a good time to notice gaps and pain points in the marketplace and fill that need. You can, in fact, get ruthless about focus on marketing the products and services that derive the most profit for your practice. Or even better, you can focus on a membership model that incentivizes your most valuable customers. And I'll talk more about this in a few minutes. What Warby Parker did was they owned the niche in their market when they realized it was hard to purchase an affordable pair of fashionable glasses online. They filled a need and customers showed up even though they weren't spending a lot of money. The company was marketed as affordable and customers needed an affordable glassware solution. So even if your company isn't as big as these examples, remember that there's a lot of enterprise companies that start and flourish during a recession. Leader, the difference maker here for these companies was about preparation. Among the companies that stagnated in the aftermath of the Great Recession, few made contingency plans or thought through alternative scenarios. According to the Bain report, when the downhill hit, they switched to survival mode, making deep cuts and reacting defensively. Many of the companies that merely limp through a recession are slower to recover and they never really catch up. In the next part of this episode, I'm going to share with you my tenets of stabilization that will prepare your aesthetic business to dominate during a recession, just like companies like Warby Parker and Amazon. Tenet number 1 is to work smarter, not harder. A natural reaction to forecasted stress in your business will be to squeeze in extra patients or add more working hours to your schedule. Be careful here. This week, my team reached out to a business owner to inform her about our final live virtual event we'll be hosting the first week of December. Last month, when we talked to her, she had asked us to get her on the waiting list to make sure she snagged the first seat once we opened admission. Her response, however, this month was, regrettably, now I don't have the time. And look, I've been there. I totally get it. When you're faced with an immediate choice between developing strategy or collecting cold hard cash, it can feel conflicting and often counterintuitive. But as our economy is tightening, your primary objective as a business owner should be preparing the business to capitalize on opportunity. This only happens by making, not getting the time to think and plan for the future. In both case studies I referenced a few minutes ago, these companies had put a plan in place that would prepare them to essentially zig while other competitors zagged. Remember that when a recession hits, money doesn't just go away. There is a transfer of wealth. Individuals and companies who prepared correctly will not just stay okay, they will thrive. They will have the infrastructure, the systems, the cash reserves, and the customers who will all remain in position to spend. Tenet number 2, leader, is to double down on long-term treatment plans. As I mentioned in Tenet 1, part of working smarter, not harder, is becoming very discerning about your business model, the products and services that derive the most impact, and leaning into the clients who are vested in you. Imagine you have 1,000 patients in your database. Those clients bring in $1 million in revenue per year. According to the Pareto principle, or the law of unequal distribution, you can assume that only 200 of those 1,000 will net 800,000 of the $1 million annually. If you're busy dealing with the wrong 600 or 800 patients, you're missing a huge opportunity here. Look, think about the most financially stable people you know. Are they worried about a recession? No, they're ready to capitalize on opportunity. Your patients who are investing tens of thousands with you per month or quarter are going to continue to do so. And one way to ensure this is to develop a long-term care plan that creates a multiplier effect. For example, perhaps your most valuable patients are investing in facial balancing and maintenance programs such as peels, energy-based device treatments, and skincare. Instead of trying to sell more of these services to everyone, think about your most lucrative customer and double down on their purchasing power. Get them on long-term care plans that bring additional value. Maybe you're adding in IV infusions, hormone supplements, nutraceuticals, etc. What happens too often is we clinch up and start discounting as a way to market our services and make them more affordable to everyone. And the problem with this strategy is when our economy is contracting, you'll be the one taking the hit on your profit margins. If you plan to discount, please begin with a gentle price increase and allow for then some private sales or VIP offers to the right clients. Remember, it's all about working smarter, not harder, and investing in the clients who will continue to support you at the highest value in any economy. Tenet number 3 is build your damn team. I cannot emphasize enough that the most important part of surviving a recession will be leaning into the top people on your team. This is not a time to cut corners when it comes to pay, training, and open communication with your team members. Eliminating excess through the strategy mentioned in Tenet 2 will allow your team to increase productivity and strengthen relationships with your most lucrative buyers. Your team not only wants to feel confidence that they are well led, but also have comfort in knowing that you will continue to go all in on them. A team member who feels appreciated and tied into the bigger vision of the organization will be willing to make adaptations and bring creative ideas to the table. Becoming reactive and cutting A-plus team members will without a doubt destroy your team morale, your culture, and the passion to invest in you. Not to mention, while you're developing a strategy to corner the market, how will you possibly be able to do this with a collection of average team members? You guys hear me talk all the time about Nick Saban and the Alabama football program. Can you imagine if he just started thinning out his bench when times got tough? Double down on the people and you will make it through anything. Tenet number 4 is to create scalable systems. What I mean here is to build infrastructure into your business that will allow you to generate revenue without requiring more of your time injecting or doctoring. So who can help support you here? See how I did that? Build your team and allow them to become catalysts for growth for your company. Think outside the box. What are ways you can leverage team or recurring revenue through retail memberships or for purchase at-home programs to diversify your revenue streams and also alleviate the pressure on you as a service provider? Recently, we had a client who hired a dietitian, have consultations, and recommend wellness supplements to aesthetic patients. This service was positioned for only top clients, who, by the way, also happen to be the ones who are eager, willing, and able to make this kind of investment into their own wellness. Her monthly per patient spend went up nearly $450 per patient per month. Translate this to your most valuable 200 patients. We're talking about another $1,080,000 per year in top-line revenue. This doesn't happen by not having time. This happens by doing the work to really understand your business, the gaps in the market, the needs of your most valuable clients, and building and investing into a badass team who can make your strategy a reality. Finally, tenet number 5 to create abundance during a recession is to invest your earnings. Look, I know it can be tempting to want to save taxes by not paying yourself a salary, or maybe you just want to stockpile as much cash as possible into the business. But remember that true wealth comes by making smart investments when they're on sale to allow you to generate income through these investments. Some of our clients invest in real estate, commodities, gold, treasury bills, or they buy up other companies. I'm not an expert on this, but by any means do I consult with one. And at the end of the day, an economic recession shouldn't be anything to be worried about if you prepare, plan, and position your business to capitalize and pivot. There's no quick fix or easy button to financial freedom, but with the right strategy in place, a time of recession could present an incredible opportunity to build your business, your thought leadership, and your wealth. Listen, leader, if you're vibing with me here, hang tight because I have a brand new resource for you. You are a successful, confident, powerful woman who just isn't into being average. No, you have a calling, and part of that calling is requiring you to level up. And I know that if you're working across the next $1 million milestone in your business, you need to be in the right circles. And perhaps that's why you found us. I'd love to invite you to join The Blueprint, a weekly resource for inspired, provocative thinkers who are taking this conversation to the next level. Get access to free business tools, podcast supplements, guideposts, and direct communication with me and my expert team. And of course, a masterfully curated circle of women making big moves and disrupting the status quo in aesthetics and wellness. You can link directly through the show notes or head to klcconsultants.com/blueprint. It's time to elevate. See you there, goddess.